Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Swipe up, episode 218 of the show, where I share my opinions on current events, whether you like it or not. This week's episode, let's get it started, shall we? Starting off with this first post, this first story. The Department of Energy announces a scientific breakthrough in nuclear fusion. The achievement marks a major step towards clean energy. I love this idea. This is news of potential hope. It's still decades away from being scaled in large amounts, being scaled up for society to benefit from this, but it is a huge leap forward in potential clean energy fusion reaction. This reaction used two hydrogen atoms and was able to control the reaction of these two hydrogen atoms that were fused together using 192 lasers shot at these atoms to push them together, basically putting out more energy than they put in. So they've finally been able to create fusion reaction, and that will lead to potentially clean energy, sustainable clean energy. The byproduct of this energy is doesn't release a lot of bad things into the world. So it is something that will allow us to hopefully stop from destroying this world we live in and provide people with clean energy. I'm sure this will be something that will be privatized and capitalism will take over, and it will probably not be as beneficial or affordable. There will be, I guarantee, the implementation of this in a capitalist society will result in a situation that is not going to be as beneficial as it should be. However, especially considering so much of our energy comes from these industries that will be put out of business due to this clean energy. So we'll see how this actually comes through, but it'll be something that will be able to be used for everything from generating electricity, fuel, running automobiles, doing everything we need to do, running large machinery. It will be able to power everything that we need it to power. And in doing so, unlike fossil fuels, unlike coal, unlike even nuclear reactors that have the potential to cause massive catastrophic damage to the world, this is something that will actually be a clean and sustainable power source. So very good news. Very good news. But it's also very early news. News that, like I said, once put into practice in a capitalist society, in a world where it seems like the human rights of this country are being threatened left and right. I don't know. I'm excited, but I'm also tentative to be too hopeful because, I live in our world. I know what our reality is, but this is great information. I mean, it's very similar to the sci-fi show that I'm a big fan of, For All Mankind. I believe that show, one of the fuel sources in season 3 were this hydrogen 3 or something like that. I forget the exact name, but it's this substance that is mined from the moon that they're able to use to create a fusion reaction to produce the energy they needed to build rockets to go to Mars. Great sci-fi show if you haven't watched For All Mankind. It's an Apple TV exclusive. I've talked about, I think I've reviewed all 3 seasons that are available. Each season is a decade of time. The premise of the show is basically, what if in the initial space race What if Russia actually beat the U.S. to the moon? And what if, in them doing that, caused the United States to invest far more heavily into space travel, thus accelerating the amount of technology that we get and basically advancing humans into space way sooner than the slow pace that we are currently at. A great kind of a prequel to what could turn into a show like Star Trek or Battlestar Galactica. Just kind of this alternate history type of a take on what what would have happened if our country actually invested in new technologies rather than trying to hold on to old technologies and keep old industries alive. A great show, and I think the concept that they use in that show is fusion. So great news. Hopefully that will continue to be good news, and it's not something that ends up being buried, a technology that gets buried and never actually comes to, be implemented into society. Let's take a little break from the show to promote gift certificates. If you want to purchase artwork for somebody, you have an art lover in your life, and you think they would like my art, but you don't know what painting to get them. I have over 2,000 original pieces of art for sale in my store, along with shirts and prints and other things. So I can understand that being a bit daunting if you're trying to buy something for somebody else. Give them the gift certificate, and then they can go to my website, inspireddisorder.com, and they can buy whatever paintings they want. They can buy whatever prints they want. They can buy t-shirts. They can buy hats. They can buy all the different merch, gift certificates, which are available currently at inspireddisorder.com. And now let's get back to the show. But let's move on, shall we? To this next story. Obviously, James Cameron, famous director, just released the follow-up, the decade-long follow-up to Avatar, which is in theaters now, Avatar: Way of Water. And this movie that this article is talking about is Titanic, the one of many blockbusters that James Cameron is responsible for, and a movie that has had a bit of controversy, I would say, ever since it came out in the late 90s. The controversy being the end scene of Titanic, where Rose is on a door floating in the ocean after the Titanic sank, and not sharing the door with Jack. And that controversy, which James Cameron has always said is a stupid controversy, a stupid debate to be having, for an upcoming re-release, a 4K re-release of Titanic that is set to be released in around Valentine's Day of 2023. There's going to be a documentary that accompanies that release, and in that documentary, James Cameron, despite calling the controversy ridiculous, did a scientific experiment to prove that Jack could not have survived on that floating door with Rose. And that means that what happened in the movie is scientifically accurate. He did a scientific study, put sensors on 2 stunt people in icy water, and to prove that what he did in the movie is correct. My issue with that, while it may be scientifically proven, my issue, as I'm sure I would assume most people's issue who believe that the controversy of Rose not sharing that floating lifesaver with Jack is not necessarily disproven by the scientific experiment that James Cameron did. The issue is that they didn't even try. They didn't even attempt. Jack just stayed in the water, and Rose just stayed on the floating door, and she survived. The big issue isn't whether it would have worked or not worked. The big issue is that they didn't even attempt to make it work. I think that's the major issue. That they were both content. Jack didn't do scientific studies to see if two people could survive. Rose didn't do any scientific studies. There was no scientist floating by as part of the crew of the Titanic that's like, hey, only one of you could survive on that. I'm a scientist. I know. So despite the fact that James Cameron has come out, gone through all this work to prove that he's right, like clearly James Cameron, despite being very good at making money with movies, like he makes movies that bring in a ton of money, right? Very popular blockbusters, whether it's the sequel to Aliens, whether it's the sequel to Terminator 2, whether it's Titanic, whether it's Avatar. Everything James Cameron makes is a gold mine. And I think that, good for him. I don't regard him as my favorite director. I think he's definitely tapped into what humanity wants to see and will spend money on, right? Which is having interesting characters in big spectacle movies. I mean, whether it's the sequel to Terminator or the sequel to Alien, he turned what was a horror sci-fi movie into an action movie in both of those cases, which, is definitely changes the vibe of those franchises, but clearly was something that tapped into the wallets of the people. He's definitely probably out of the directors like a James Cameron or a Michael Bay or these directors that are able to do these movies that are highly profitable, these big blockbuster spectacle movies. I would say James Cameron's probably the makes the best movies out of those type of spectacle directors. But I don't consider him like a favorite director of mine. If his movies didn't make that much money, I don't think the stories that he tells or the way they're told are particularly extraordinary or special in any way. Whether it's Titanic, which clearly struck a chord, especially with girls of the time. Women, it's a great love story, whatever. Had some action moments for the guys. Like it's understandable why it was so popular. Avatar, very immersive. Like he definitely makes these movies that are super immersive, that bring the audience in, that connect with a large audience, and have stories that are pretty simple stories, love stories, environmental stories, or different things. But as far as this scientific study somehow negating the argument people have about the scene in Titanic, the scientific study does nothing to dispense of any kind of doubt, because regardless of the accuracy of them being able to survive on this door, the main issue is that there was zero attempt. Right? I think a lot of people assume they could have survived, but the fact that they didn't even try is the big issue. In my mind, is the big issue. Okay, yes, it looks like they could survive, right? All they would have had to do to prove James Cameron correct, if in the original film, Jack tried to get on the door with her, and it clearly was not going to work, so then he sacrificed himself. Does not happen. I believe it doesn't happen. I haven't seen this movie in 20 years, so I am kind of going off a very old memory of this, but I believe there is no attempt. Because even if there was an attempt in the movie, I don't think the argument ever would have existed, right? Because you would have seen, whether it's scientifically correct or not, at least you would have seen that attempt in the movie for them to share that door as a way to survive. But the attempt never happened. So regardless of the scientific confirmation of its inability to save both of them, doesn't that matter, James Cameron? You didn't win this argument. right? Just trying to prove something post, trying to come back and justify the fact that you didn't even have them try to do it because you needed to have him die, right? It has to have that kind of gut punch to lose a character, to kill a beloved character off. That's the whole reason he died. Not because of the logistics of a door not being able to support both of them scientifically, because he needed to kill him off, because that is how you manipulate an audience into caring more. So I should probably go back. I actually would love to do a top 5 of James Cameron's movies and watch them all and rank them. Be very interesting, I think, because he has done some, some big block, as far as like the big blockbuster movies. I think he's definitely the king. He's definitely the king. And I've heard mixed of the new Avatar, but the first one was okay. I remember reviewing it when it first came out, like 15 years ago, however long it's been. No real desire to go out to a movie theater to watch this new one. I'll wait. I don't like 3D. Like after Avatar, the first Avatar came out, how like the trend in all movies and even home electronics was this 3D gimmick. Horrible. It ruined so many movies that came out at the time and really tried to convince a bunch of people to buy TVs and Blu-ray players that really had no content to play. There really wasn't a whole lot of 3D content out there, and it was just a crazy gimmick, and I was selling TVs at the time. So, and I couldn't, I was like, this is a gimmick, there's no content, so if you want to spend all this extra money buying a TV that you have to wear glasses for, not only do you have to wear glasses for, you have to make sure your glasses are charged up, so God forbid you're watching a movie and somebody's glasses die midway through the movie, you gotta plug them in and wait for them to charge before you can finish the movie. Just the dumbest gimmick that hit, and it was 100% because of James Cameron pushing this 3D technology. And here he is back again with a movie that I hear is amazing and super immersive and looks gorgeous, but I'm not as excited as so many people are. But anyway, good for the scientific effort, and it doesn't prove anything. It doesn't prove. It should have. They should have tried. That's all they had to do. There wouldn't even be an argument if in the movie he had them try to share and then it doesn't work. But they didn't do that. I believe. I could be completely wrong. Anyway. Let's take a little break from the show to promote the benefits of Inspired Disorder Plus. So you go inspireddisorder.com/plus. Sign up, $5 a month. You get to binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free. You get to watch all of the live painting videos I do. You get a special members-only discount and deals for all of the artwork and merch that I sell. You also get the complete podcast back catalog of every podcast I've ever produced, hundreds of episodes, countless different podcasts. You also get access to my personal blog. A new blog comes out every week. In addition to that, you get my creative writing that I'm releasing. You also get access to Asking Me Anything. 14 years of experience podcasting. I've been creating art my entire life. I've been using Photoshop since middle school, and you can contact me to ask me questions about that or anything else. So those are the benefits for signing up for Inspired Disorder Plus. And now let's get back to the show. Let's move on to the last story. Some good news. Biden signed a marriage equality law in front of drag queens and the nephew of that Republican who cried about it. So some good news, despite the fact that so many kind of bad things are happening, specifically due to the Supreme Court and it being full of conservative whack jobs, people who believe in conspiracies, who belong to cults or used to belong to cults, just really stripping away human rights and taking away laws from people, making, the whole idea of freedom and equality more of a myth more now than ever. Biden was able to, the government, as it were, was able to actually pass something and sign a law into act, the Marriage Act. Is that what it's called? Respect for Marriage Act is what it was called, which provides a fail-safe in case the Supreme Court was to overturn a few cases. This will also protect marriage equality, not only for gay marriage, but also interracial marriage, because one of the cases that they were planning to overturn is to make interracial marriage illegal, which is kind of hilarious considering one of these conservative lunatics in the Supreme Court is in a interracial marriage. So it's nice to see at least there was one stopgap. Clearly, the government didn't do anything to protect women's rights, as far as now the Roe versus Wade has been overturned. So at least they were able to do something, which is good, because when I first saw this passing in like Congress or whatever step it was, where they were all like cheering on the passing of this thing, it's like, well, like you constantly see these things being passed, but then getting shot down way before they ever get to President Biden's desk. And it's like they're celebrating so early. Right now we can celebrate a victory. Right? Once it's signed and in law, great. Celebrate now. But all of this celebration of these things that end up eventually being shot down anyway is just ridiculous. These like premature celebrations of things to like get people's hopes up, or to just make it seem like they're doing stuff, when in reality so many things just don't actually happen because they can't get through the House and Senate and all these different things. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. So it's good news that this happened. Protects against any states that want to change their laws to make same-sex marriages or interracial marriages illegal. So that's good. Protects against any states that want to do that. And it protects people, surviving spouses, from it protects them they can receive benefits if their spouse passes away, which is a big thing with same-sex marriages, not given the same rights and as a straight heterosexual marriage. When, being able to receive benefits, being able to receive pensions, these things that a surviving spouse would get when their loved one dies, when their partner dies, was for a long time only given to straight marriages, which is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. So it protects a lot of those things. So it's good. It's a law that's going to do a lot of good things and give a lot of protection, so we don't have to worry, at least for now, about those rights being taken away. So it is a massive victory for the LGBTQ community, and a big victory for civil rights in general. It's a landmark civil rights bill, as President Biden said. So, and also a victory for people who are in interracial. It's amazing that we're about to be in the year 2023. We are in the future, right? You as a kid, you watch Back to the Future 2, where Marty McFly goes into the future. We're past that future, right? And we're in a time where laws and rights for people, human rights, are being rolled back 100 years. Is insane, because these insane, delusional conservatives just, for some reason, define making certain ways of life illegal as somehow giving them more freedom. From removing federal protections of equal rights and allowing so many states to just remove human rights because they are right-leaning states, because they are states that are led by conservatives, is just insane that we're living in a time where so many Americans have and are in danger of losing basic human rights, basic equality, which is like even the use of equality for so long was a joke, because there's so many aspects of human life in this country that were not treated as equal and are still not treated as equal. The amount of systematic racism that exists and homophobia that exists in this country is just insane how broken our system has always been. And at least there is this one little nice thing that happened. And, anything to make conservatives cry, make Christians cry, people that has nothing to do with them, but, they are such pathetic little snowflakes that somebody else given the opportunity of freedom and equality somehow hurts their feelings. It's just mind-blowing. So I'm happy for this. Some good news. And of course, after these midterms in like January or whatever, when all the new people show up to work, who knows what'll happen? Who knows what'll happen once Supreme Court starts ruling on all these old cases? We'll see all of the crazy things that will be happening that are probably not going to be good. And it's just amazing how little change actually happens. But at least a little glimmer of good news. So with all that said, let's do some shout-outs and get out of here, shall we? Shout out to ABC News, shout out to Movie Facts, and shout out to BuzzFeed News. But most importantly, shout out to you.
New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.